Welcome to this tutorial where we're going to examine how you can package or transform or convert your Python code into a command line tool. My name is Jeroen. I already got a great introduction, so we can keep this brief. A lot of the material today is based on a book I wrote a couple of years ago, Data Science at the Command Line, which you can read for free. If you go through to my website, you can easily find that book. And a couple of months ago, another book that I wrote came out together with Thijs. And what's good to mention is that we're giving away 25 signed hard copies on Sunday. And if you want to, participate in the raffle, you can go to this URL or scan the QR code. If you then fill in your first name and your email address, then you get a chance to win a copy. And the lucky winners will be announced tomorrow, end of day. Yeah? All right, so that's polarsguy.com/PyData London. See? Anyway, but for the next 90 minutes, we're not going to be focusing on polars. We're going to be focusing on that other technology which has been around for a bit longer, the command line. Right? And I'm not going to explain why you should use the command line. I mean, the fact that you're here pretty much shows that you are already convinced that the command line is a wonderful way of working, very complementary to using an IDE or a programming language. And one of the beautiful things about the command line is that you can very easily extend it. You can create your own tools. There are already a lot of tools available. I mean, even if you just install, a Linux distribution, or if you have Mac OS, there are, I'd say about 100 tools already at your disposal. And then, there are thousands more tools available to you, and new tools are being written every day. And the good thing is that it's actually not that hard to write your own. That's what we're going to be looking at today, because I really believe that if you're able to create your own tools, that they'll eventually, or actually immediately, make you more efficient and productive and effective, right? So, and that's of course a good thing. And because the command line has been around for so long, I think I have another slide about this too. Because it's been around for over 50 years, we can safely say that it's going to be around for the rest of your career. Yeah? I hope it will be a long and prosperous career. And there will be many, many tools, many programming languages will come and go. Plenty of JavaScript frameworks. But there's this one technology which is going to be sticking around for a very long time, and that is the command line. So this is roughly what we're going to be covering today. First of all, I want to make clear what is it that we're actually talking about when we say CLI. Yeah? Then the interface. How do you design your next tool? And there are two components to that. On the one hand, arguments and options and switches. And on the other hand, how do you deal with streams of data? Then we're going to go into the fundamentals, or how can you transform an existing piece of Python code into something that is usable from the command line in 6 easy steps. Then I'll show you how you can upgrade from that, the fundamental way of doing things using either argparse, a Python module, or Typer, a relatively new Python package that you can use to easily build modern command line tools. We'll have a look at UV and how you can use it to create self-contained tools. And along the way, I'll share some best practices. This is a tutorial, and I really want to encourage you to ask questions along the way, right? So this is your opportunity to extract as much information as you want from me. We can, you know, I've prepared plenty of slides, I have some exercises, but I really want this to be interactive. So any question is encouraged and welcome. All right then, what are we talking about here? We're talking about this. We're talking about the Unix command line. Yeah? So if you're running either macOS or a Linux distribution, the most popular one being Ubuntu, then you're good. If you're currently running on just Windows, that's not enough, right? Windows does offer, you know, two types of command lines, but they're you know, a different breed of command lines, interfaces. Yeah, so if you want to follow along today and you're running Windows, you have two options. You can either install Windows Subsystem for Linux, WSL, or you can use Docker and use a Docker image that has a Linux distribution on it. And at the end of this presentation, there are links to this, or actually also in the description of this tutorial on the PyData website in the schedule, there are links to, you know, how you can follow, links to instructions and how you can either install WSL or use a Docker image. Right, is Git bash going to do the same thing? That's a good point, and it might actually be good enough. Or if it works, it works. Great, yes, so thank you very much for mentioning that. If you have Git bash installed, then that works as well. Thank you. We're not going to be talking about textual user interfaces, or TUIs. They're great, right? Here we have lazy Git, for example, but they are a very different approach. They're more like applications that, you know, are running in your terminal, but they're a very different approach than working with command line tools. Yeah? If you are interested in this and you are interested in creating a TUI using Python, then I can recommend you check out the textual package. All right, let's have a look. So if I do this, right, we're at the command line. I guess we want this to be a little bit larger. Yeah. Is the text large enough for everybody to read? You don't see anything? Maybe I'm mirroring just, that's odd. So if I were to go back to, let me see here. Oh, So you do see this? Then if I were to do this, and then this, you still don't see it. So it appears that I'm only mirroring a specific application. Sorry about that, just give me a second here to choose window or app. All right, mirror all application windows. Excellent. Thank you. Yes, I mean, sorry? What? Oh, no, please. If you, yeah, so I have indeed spent some time on customizing my environment, my prompt, and please don't be intimidated or anything. This is totally not needed for today. Yeah. If you are interested in this, we can talk about this after today's tutorial. Yeah, I'll be around for the rest of the day and the entire conference, actually. I'm always happy to talk about this. And I am working inside tmux, right, a terminal multiplexer, so that I can easily switch between different windows and panes. Sorry? Oh, bigger, yes. Thank you for saying that. How about this? Is this big enough? Yeah, I see a thumbs up. Right, thank you. And if at any point, it's still too small, just let me know. Okay. Yes, I was going to show you this script, right? What was it? Yes. I'm going to be running a script called greet simple. There we are. This is the output of that script, right? What does the script look like? Let's have a look here. So this is not a command line tool. This is just a very small Python script. Yeah? It opens up names.txt, and then for every name that is in this file, it will, print it out along with a greeting. Yeah, so this is what names.txt looks like. Yeah, just 10 random names. As simple as this is, right? It's not so much that it's simple. What it represents is it's a script that may very much be like something you have created in the past. Yeah. So it is something that we can turn into a command line tool. Yeah. Using a couple of steps, but there are certain aspects here that need to change. For example, there are some hard-coded values in here, yeah, such as the file name, or such as the greeting. And it doesn't offer any, flexibility. It also doesn't provide any help, things that we come to expect from a command line tool. Yeah? So what we're going to do today is turn this into something that we can actually call a command line tool. It can be run from the command line already, but only because I invoked Python, which then interpreted this script. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, sorry, me too. So. Here we go. Yeah, I already said this, going to be around for a long time, trust me. Hey, so when I say command line tool, yeah? It's this is frustrating. Add windows. Right, let's just leave it like this then. Oh, or like this. Okay. Sorry about this. Hopefully from now on it will be all right. So, command line tool, it's an umbrella term, right? We have a variety of different tools and how they're implemented. Yeah? We can have simple aliases or shell functions defined in our configuration file, or we can even have scripts that are compiled, and so binary executables. We're going to be looking at interpreted scripts, right? Because of course today our language of choice is Python. Yeah? And I believe that this really hits a sweet spot when it comes to creating your own tools. They give you all the flexibility you need from a programming language, and still all the power, maybe not the speed, but still all the power from a binary executable, and a lot more flexibility than a small shell function or alias provides. Yeah? But the good thing is, and you might already be aware of this, is that the command line itself doesn't really care in which language a script is programmed in. Yeah? As long as you adhere to certain standards, yeah? It doesn't matter whether it's in Bash or Python or Rust. We do see more and more command line tools being implemented in Rust. Yeah? That's a very welcome thing. But this also means is that you can easily combine tools written in different programming languages. Yeah? So if you want to take a polyglot approach for whatever reason, maybe you're working with a team that works in another language, yeah? Then this is a way to do that using the command line. So, and then there's this other part of the so-called Unix philosophy. Yeah? Is that Most tools, not every tool, they do one thing, but they do it really well. Yeah? Because you can string these tools together, that gives you a lot of flexibility. You can solve many, many different problems that way. So keep that in mind as you are designing your next command line tool. So you shouldn't try to implement everything in your own tool. It's good to be aware of the existing tools that are already out there. Yeah, so these can be features that the shell provides, such as piping, or reading from a file, writing to a file, or globbing. Yeah, so finding multiple files using some pattern, or command line tools such as cat or curl for downloading things. Yeah, if your command line tool downloads something in order to process it, you may want to consider like, hey, how about I just rip that out of my tool and let curl then do the work so that it can pipe its output to as my input. Yeah, so that's requires a little bit of a different way of thinking. Yeah. So in other words, stay in your lane. Try to focus on what your tool needs to do well. So here we are with our very first exercise. Don't worry, it's not a coding exercise. This is a pen and paper and a thinking exercise. Although with coding, I do think that we still do a little bit of thinking, right? So pen and paper. I would like you to think about what your next command line tool could be. So try to remember something that you have created in the past, whether that was a helper script or a one-off notebook. Does it contain something that can be generalized? Right? If you strip out all of the hard-coded values, yeah? So what was a particular task that you have to do every so often, or that you may be needing to do in the future? Yeah? And then let's think about how you can turn it into a command line tool. And I know we haven't talked about the interface just yet. For now, I just want you to think about, is there already something out there or that you have created that you can use? And if you cannot really come up with something, that's all right. Maybe you can think of a tool that you may want to be designing. Is there something in your work or otherwise that requires some tasks that you cannot really comfortably do using the existing command line tools already out there? So that might be a gap, an opportunity for you to write your own command line tool. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes for that. Yeah? So pen and paper, or make notes on your laptop to think about what your next tool could be. Try to focus on your exercise. I'll try to focus on this setup that I've never encountered before, these issues. Yeah. I guess I said all of these things, right? Yeah. Oh, man. by the way, if you have any questions that you feel are, not for everybody, but more to your personal setup at the moment, now would also be a good time. Either Thijs or myself might be able to help you, whether that's regarding your setup or any other question that you have. Yeah, you want me to come over? Or do you think it's, would you like me to come over? Or Thijs? Or?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
I have this repo that's for my work.
Yeah.
Currently it's a mix of a Quarto
Oh yeah.
doc that then builds the GitHub Markdown,
Nice.
which is very nice. This is the Python script, and I was thinking to make this into a standalone
Cool.
tool.
Yeah.
And it would take these like a parameter of like a vehicle.
Wonderful.
Fleet
Yes.
ID. So ideally, my co-workers could use it rather than
Yeah.
me having to run it all the time. That would be my basic.
That sounds wonderful.
Idea,
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Great. All right. Let's continue. Don't worry if you're still thinking or writing. Okay, so you have a tool in mind. We don't know yet what it's going to look like, but that will come in a moment. Let's talk about how we can design the interface of our next command line tool. Like I said, the interface is roughly based on two aspects, right? On the one hand, we can give our tool arguments, yeah, also known as options and switches and flags. And on the other hand, we can let our tool deal with streaming input or input and output and error messages, right? So let's first focus on those arguments. Now, there are a lot of terms here when it comes to those arguments, and various sources use different lingo. But this is what I believe to be, the case. So here we have one example. This git commit command. Now, git is what is the command. Commit in this case is the subcommand. -v, which stands for verbose, is an option. Yeah. Or no, it's a switch. You see, really, it doesn't really matter what we call these things. Just know that sometimes they're called options or switches or flags. Yeah, I believe because this particular one, so -v, doesn't take any arguments, any parameters. It can be known as a flag or a switch, and then -m would be an option. Yeah? And in this case, yeah, -m, well, they're both optional, yeah, but you can have optional arguments or required arguments. And so everything besides git itself, git is the command, and all of them are arguments, yeah. So that is the top level name for all of these things. And to demonstrate that, I've created a very small tool that we can run from the command line. Yes, you see this, fantastic. Yeah, so we have here printargs.py. So, well, I guess we can mimic what was there. And what it prints is a list of strings. Text is the universal interface on the command line, so all the arguments that you give are just strings. If you need to treat them differently, you may need to do some extra work. especially when you're using the built-in functionality that we're going to start with in a moment. Yeah, other modules and packages may be able to do some work for you. The very first value in this list, known as argv, is the name of the tool, the command that you used. So if there was an alias, that was pointing to this tool, we would know. That name would then appear as the first value in this list. So we have commit, we have -v, -m, and then fixed typo is one value because I used quotes. Yeah, if I didn't use those, they would be separate values over here. Yeah. What's interesting, by the way, is that I can also show you, let's say, so what I did here, the very last argument is I used something here called command substitution. Yeah? This is a feature that your shell, bash or the Z shell or fish, takes care of. So this is not something that your tool has to do. Yeah, it's great. Same as with globbing. If I were to do star or asterisk.py, we would get all the file names as separate arguments. That's neat, huh? That's neat. It's good to know. Something that it's already functionality that you don't have to worry about. So, oh wait, I guess I can show you the code. Oh, it's already up here. Fantastic. Yeah, it's a very short piece of code. It just pre-prints the argv value. So arg values. What are the arguments passed to this script? And I'll explain later what this very first line means. Yeah? It's crucial. It's crucial for creating a command line tool yourself, for any command line tool, really. So we used sys.argv in this case. This is as low level as you can get. It's just a list of command line arguments. If you want to do any fancy things, then if you want to support both short and long options, if you want to do any verification, then those are things that you have to do yourself. So that might be a lot of work. But if you're creating a tool that creates 0, 1, or 2, or that needs 0, 1, or 2 arguments, then I would say that's fine. If this tool is for your purposes only, and I would say that's 99% of the tools that I expect you to create, then it's fine to use argv. Yeah, so the first element is the script name, and the remaining elements are arguments. And another reason why it's good to be aware of this is that the other solutions that we're going to be looking at, the argparse module and typer, or maybe you want to use click instead, or something else that I've never heard of, all of these Python solutions, they still use argv under the hood. So when it comes to options, that you can use for your next command line tool, there are certain conventions out here. And a lot of tools, not all of them, there are always exceptions. I mean, that happens when something has been around for that long. There are always exceptions, but it is generally understood that these short and long options are they're common. They're common conventions here. Yeah. So when it comes to providing help, you would provide both the short option -h or the long option --help. Yeah. I'm not going to be listing them all. So they're more for you to consult as a reference as you are when we go to the next exercise. Yeah, so -f if you want to specify a file, or if you just take a moment to look at these. And again, there are always exceptions. And I would say that, you know, with the next exercise, don't go overboard. It's not necessary to have all of these implemented. And I would say the fewer, the better. Yeah, so when it comes to outputting something in JSON is very, very popular these days. Maybe you want to generate some configuration file automatically. I don't know. That you can first inspect in some format, or maybe, you know, output it as JSON when you want to save that. I don't know. Just making this up. And now it's your turn to make things up. So I want you to think about the arguments that your next command line tool will get. So try to think about, okay, what is their purpose? Do they change a setting that is crucial? So are they required, or are they actually optional? Do you want to control the amount of logging that your tool is going to produce? So optional or required. Yeah, look, just think about it and try to come up with a couple of invocations. Yeah? Does your tool need subcommands? Yeah? It's fancy, right? I mean, something like git has a lot of subcommands, but is that really something that your tool is going to need in order to get the job done? Yeah? Something to think about. Again, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to just brainstorm about this. Of course. Shall I come over, or is it a general question? Good.
What are your thoughts about using the standard, I think it's POSIX, standard dash flag or dash flag, dash H, for example, as opposed to kind of different training when you build stuff like with the Go, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Go compiler, if you want to get the version, usually you do Go version without the dash.
All right. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
Okay, so what are my thoughts when it comes to short options and long options? So Go violates, I would say, the convention that for long options you use 2 dashes. And I think that is just, it's not a common thing. It's an exception, I would say. So I'm not a big fan of that, personally, no. So what happens then, so these short options, right? Many tools allow you to merge short options together, right? So you would use 1 dash, and then you can have a couple of letters, yeah, and they would each be short options that you could provide separately, right? So, for example, tar, right? Dash XZ VF, right? I read that XKCD comic just this morning to remember the arguments to tar. Right, you can paste them together, but how does Go then handle that when also long options only need a single dash? Yeah, so yeah, good point. But so this is, again, like I said, there are always exceptions to whatever we're discussing today. All right, shall we move on? Yes. In a way, command line tools are kind of like functions. Yeah? Why do we use functions in our code? Well, to abstract away some complexity, yeah? And functions can take 0, 1, or more arguments, yeah? So that you give them some flexibility, that they do one thing and do it well, hopefully, right? But there is at least one thing that sets command line tools apart from your Python functions, and that is that each process in a Unix-like system has 3 standard streams available. Yeah? And again, it's all text. Yeah, that's the universal interface. So if you want to output numbers, or if you want to ingest numbers, yeah, from some other tool or from a file, you need to do some work there. But you know, that's a necessary thing in order to make this, you know, a general interface that always works. Yeah? So there are 3 standard streams. Standard because they're always available. Standard input, standard output, and standard error. Abbreviated often as stdin, stdout, and stdir. Not every tool uses these. Yeah? Your tool may not need it, right? But that's something that we're going to think about in a moment. Yeah? For example, pwd, print working directory, doesn't need your input. It just prints out the current working directory. And if you haven't done anything special, it will be printed to the screen. Yeah? Rev can read from, or does read from standard input. Yeah? It reverses, it inputs line by line. And if you haven't done anything special, then it will read from the things that you type. Yeah? It's attached to your keyboard input. Yeah? So let me demonstrate this. So I'm just typing rev here, and you see this cursor? It's not doing it. There's no output. It's waiting for input to come in via the standard input stream. Yeah, so if I type something, it reverses it. Oh wait, that doesn't seem to work. Ah, good, it does work. Hey, line by line, and also, so I input a line and I output a line, and then it immediately outputs, right? But if I were to say, pass in my list of 10 names, it will read from that instead, yeah? And similarly, I can redirect the output to a file, say names rev.txt. You see no more output to the screen, but it's redirected to this file. And similarly, instead of redirecting to a file, we can pipe our output to another tool, which then reads from its standard input. And, you know, that is the beauty of the command line, is this flexibility to solve a big puzzle, right? By combining all these pieces together in various ways. And I would like you to, in a moment when we do the third exercise, I would like you to think about this as well. Yeah? Is your tool going to be really standalone? Is it going to try to do everything itself? Or is it going to be making use of other tools already available? And what are some of the tools that may want to consume its output? Yeah, that's another way to think about it. Yeah, I pretty much covered this. Yeah. Has anyone ever tried reading and writing to the same file in one pipeline? No? Yeah? No? No? Well, you can't do it, so you shouldn't. If you do that, what happens is that the last process that is supposed to write to a file, to the file that you're also reading from, immediately opens it for writing and thereby truncating the file. So the first process, which might be the same one, starts with an empty file, and as a result, you just delete your data. Yeah, but there is a solution. There is this. You can either write to a different file first and then rename that, of course, or there is this tool called Sponge, which is not installed by default, but Homebrew has it, and it's also other package. You can very much it's part of more utils. Yes. So third exercise, again, not a coding exercise, although you're welcome to code if you want to. I want you to think about these streams. Your command line tool, your next command line tool, I guess it operates on some data, right? That's what it often does. This data, is this always coming from, or do you really care where this data comes from? Yeah? Or would you be happy to just get some text, right? And then let the user, which may be yourself, figure out how to get that text, whether that's a local file or something that you download, or maybe you use a command line tool to first extract some data from a database that then gets outputted to standard output that your tool can then read as standard input or from standard input, right? I would like you to think about that. So we have 3 standard streams available to us. Which ones are you going to need? You know, in some tools, the arguments and the streams, they sort of interact, as in, if you specify an input file, right, for a lot of tools that I've come across, if you specify an input file, it will not read from standard input. Yeah? There are tools that, if you don't specify anything, they just wait, right? Like we just saw with Rev, or there are tools that just error. Yeah. And the same holds for outputting, right? Are you happy to output the standard output so that you give other tools the flexibility to process that output even further? Or do you really want to write to a file, maybe because it's a binary format of some sort? All right, I think that's enough time to think about streams. We're also halfway this tutorial, so I suggest that we take a quick break. You know, today's actually my birthday. Thank you, thank you. Oh. Yes, it's been a hell of a ride. Now to celebrate this, I brought stroopwafels from the Netherlands. And I hope I have enough stroopwafels, but if you would like one, you're very welcome to come over here and grab one. So let's take a 5-minute break, you know, stretch your legs, go to the restroom, whatever, eat a stroopwafel, and then we'll reconvene. Stroopwafel, that's right, stroopwafel. Oh ja, nee, heel goed, heel goed. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's, yeah. I brought 72. So I was told that the maximum capacity was 66. So we'll see. We'll see how many are still here.
And how many are
Yeah.
lactose intolerant?
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
of
really
course.
like the approach that you're taking of thinking exercises.
Yeah.
I really like it.
Oh, that's
I just
good.
wanted to, because this is the process that we follow when planning, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, when you're planning your next CLI tool, you probably go through these thought exercises, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So is there any framework that you do to document it, or you just open a notes and you start writing?
Yeah, that's usually it. These tools are often very small, and they're mostly meant for yourself to improve your own productivity and to make life on the command line just a little bit more bearable. And so it's very much ad hoc, and then there's always room for improvement later on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the reason because sometimes you think about something and then you start writing about how it tool should be, and then in my case, maybe you get engaged with something else, and then you go back to that after a few weeks, and then you start you retake your notes from that time, and you start doing your code.
Yeah.
And then eventually that you need to take something that you have written to make it your own documentation for your future self.
Yes, and that's why I generally advise against using argv, this bare bones approach, so that you can more easily add, so that you can make your tool self-documenting, so that it has a help that you can then look into. Yeah, you're welcome.
When you code, you actually write in the help itself, like do it exactly when you're doing it, at the time you're doing it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Great,
Cool.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a stroopwafel, if you like.
Yes. Why not?
Ja, oh. Ja, geen koolzuur. Ik heb water. Ik ben voorzien. Dank je. Later zeker.
It was nice, going well.
Is it going well? That's good to hear. We're halfway. Yeah, we're sort of halfway with our slides. Man. Buttery smooth.
Time flies when talking about the command line.
Time flies.
How more sessions coming? For the next 2 days, or just for one session?
I do just one session.
One session, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we just do one session. Let's walk around a little bit. Ik moet even mijn neus sluiten.
Precies bij deze slide. Think about your arguments. Got relationship therapy doorgekruist. Creating your own Python scripts for the CLI.
Yeah. Oh, ik heb al 1 hartje.
Zeg je?
Ik heb al 1 hartje. Of ben je dat zelf?
Ik zal ook wel een hartje bijzetten. Hella.
Ah. Lieve Hella altijd.
Zelf ook een hartje bijzetten. Fuck it.
Ja. Nee. Dat gaat iets te ver. Hey, hi. Hey, thank you.
A couple weeks ago.
Oh, well,
So-
belated happy
Thank you.
birthday. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're enjoying the show? Yeah?
Very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, that's good to hear.
List of questions you might.
Oh, good. And if you think they're general questions, then by all means. I mean, if it's very likely that someone else has a similar question. So, yeah, always good.
Not so general question. Have you read this? Do you know?
That's what we're going to use.
Good. Nice.
Yeah. So,
Brilliant. So
does it mention PEP 723?
I think so. Or
Oh.
maybe not yet, because it was in December 2024. I'm not sure if that PEP was.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Definitely.
It might be.
I
But
had the feeling you
yes.
were going into this direction.
Definitely. Yeah. So we're on the bleeding edge.
Nice.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, thank you.
Wanneer wil je dat ook een seintje geeft? Zou ik het uitzetten?
Oh ja, dat is wel goed eigenlijk.
Kwartiertje van tevoren, nog steeds.
Ja, doe maar een kwartier, ja.
Een kwartiertje en 5 minuten van tevoren.
Ja, dat is een goeie. Dat is een goeie. Yes.
We hebben nu nog 35 minuutjes voordat het allemaal weer loopt.
35?
Is het 12:30?
Oké, let's get going then. Maar goed, ik heb niet echt een tijd gezegd. Ik heb ook helemaal geen tijd bijgehouden. Gewoon doen.
Er zijn 10 minuten pauze gehad, dat is wel prima.
Ja.
Gewoon lekker doorpakken, dan een beetje van tevoren zijn ik. Dan komt de wrap-up een beetje.
Welke pil neemt Nio nou eigenlijk? De rode of de blauwe?
Blue pill is volgens mij dat je niet wakker wordt. Red pill is wakker worden volgens mij.
And I'll show you how.
Would do the red and blue pill, kijken metaphorical, red pill. Ja, learning or unsettling life-changing truth by taking red pill, remaining in the questioning experience of an illusion, appearing in extraordinary reality with blue pill. Blauw is blijven, rood is wakker worden.
We gaan wakker worden.
Kan ik weer red pill. Maar dat is
Yes.
een beetje in het hele instant gebeuren is red pill ook een soort van ziek dat de wereld zo gebouwd is. Flauw te zeggen en zo. Dus een beetje misschien.
Oh nee, nee. Ik ga hem gewoon maken.
Vooruit. Je hebt zelfs black pill daarin. Dan zit je helemaal extremistisch bent.
Nee, die optie is er
Als
niet.
je die laat liggen, dan is het allemaal prima.
Zeker. All right, let's continue. So far we've talked mainly about concepts, yeah? And that's actually what I care most about, right? Syntax itself is not that exciting. Those are things you can look up or even let some LLM do for you. Now what I really want you to take home are the underlying concepts. But I also want you to know how to proceed. So we're going to look at some concrete steps now in how to turn that very simple Python script, greetsimple.py, how we can turn that into a command line tool. So we're going to use very, very basic steps for this, yeah? So we're going to copy the existing code. It's a bit maybe obvious, but maybe you have your code in a notebook or a Quarto Markdown file, or you need to just extract some portion of a larger code base. So we're first gonna make sure that we have the required code in a separate file. That's our very first step. Then again, we're gonna think about the arguments. Yeah. So this is an exercise that you already did, and now we're also going to do this for this particular script. We're going to be thinking about, okay, the standard input. Or are there other streams that we want to make use of? Then as a fourth step, we're going to be looking at the very first line, the shebang line that our interpreted scripts could really use in order to start using them as a proper command line tool. I'll explain a little bit about making your code executable by changing the permission bits. And then lastly, I'll show you how to add, how to change your search path so that it really feels like a proper command line tool. Yeah? So, and right now I can imagine that you feel a little bit like Alice in Wonderland, tumbling down the rabbit hole. But let's just take the red pill and I'll show you how far this goes. Okay, yeah, so this is this tool, which you can already look at if you have the GitHub repository open. That's our end state. Yeah, so I'll walk you through the steps. Leave this open, sort of as our to-do list. Yeah. Or maybe let's do this. The great simple. Yeah. So, all right. Right. Yes. Let's just do this here, and I can. So we have our starting position and the final position where we want to go to now open next to each other. Yeah, so you've already seen this one here on the left. That's our very basic script. It's not a command line tool yet because it's not executable. We still need Python. It doesn't take any arguments. It doesn't read from standard input, right? So those are the things that we're going to change. So I guess where to start? Well, we already copied it, so I would say that step one is now taken care of. argv, where are we? Here. Yes, argv. Okay, so we want to change this, the greeting. Yeah, so let me just cheat a little bit here and copy from this other file. And I guess we also need to import the sys module over here. And then in order to make use of that greeting, I'll just do greeting like this. So now, let's save this. Now what we can do is, so it's not yet a proper command line tool here, right? But bear with me. Greet simple.py. And if I just, this is also how I ran it before. Now it just, it still works the same, but I can also pass in one argument and then, hey, we have different output. So we have now already added some flexibility to this script and command line tool in the making. Right? Any questions about this particular step? Yeah? Okay, good. The third step, right. Our current tool reads from names.txt, and that's a fixed value. It's hard-coded. Yeah. So we want this tool to take in, any data, right? Whether that comes from the internet or a database or a local file, we want to be greeting everybody. So instead of I guess I need to, I closed, yes, all right, so Python, or greet simple. Yeah, I shouldn't have closed that. Okay, but, so instead of reading from names.txt, well, so this is also a file. It's just a special file here in our Unix-like environment. And it's already open. So we don't need to open this. It's already open, so we can immediately start iterating. But for our purposes, we can just treat it as a file. Yeah? So this looks about right. Now, instead of closing this, let me you see, I didn't pass in any file, so it's now blocking. It's waiting for standard input. So if I just say, hey, Thijs, just hi Thijs. So now it behaves sort of what we also saw with rev, right? It reads line for line from standard input and immediately outputs the standard output, and they're both, you know, connected to the screen. But if I send an interrupt, I just did Control-C, so that with that you send an interrupt and you get a warning. There are ways to make it exit nicely. But I can still now pass in names.txt using the smaller than sign. Yeah. Or I could no, it has to be this. Yes, right? So doesn't matter whether they're numbers or lines coming from a local file or some other process outputting something, right? So again, a lot more flexibility now that we make use of the standard input. Fantastic. So that brings us to step number 4. Oh yeah, the shebang. You know, funny story. I once participated in a beatboxing competition. I did that once and only once. And I had to come up with a stage name. And I was, of course, already, you know, nerding out on the command line. So I thought, like, shebang, sounds awesome, sounds powerful. Of course, when I was announced, it was pronounced as shebang. So, the shebang, the name, the term comes from these 2 characters, the hash and the bang, the exclamation mark. Together, these are, you know, this particular combination are just a particular set of bits that instruct the shell that the remainder of this line is the executable that should be interpreting the rest of the file. I hope I got that correct. Does that make sense? So here we have, okay, so there's a little bit of additional complexity here because this is actually the executable that is going to be interpreting this. User bin env. And it takes 1 argument here, Python 3. So all that this does, so we can run this, we can say env Python 3, and it runs Python 3 regardless of where the executable Python 3 is on my system. So using user bin env makes your tool more portable, because it might be that on someone else's system, Python 3 is in a different location. So this is not something that you want to hard code. Yeah? So this is very common. User bin env Python 3. Okay, so, and then later we're going to look at a different line when we start using UV and PEP 723. Exciting stuff coming later. So now that we have this, let's save this, we no longer have to specify Python 3. Yeah? We can, well, there's still a couple of steps that we need to do in order to make this feel like a true command line tool. Yeah, it still says command not found. We're going to solve that in a moment. Now it says permission denied. Okay, what's going on? This brings us to step number 5. every file and every directory in a Unix-like system has certain permissions associated with it. What is allowed? And currently, if we look at, let me see here. If we have a look here at the files in our directory, then in the very left, we see RWX and some dashes. And these indicate the permission bits, the permissions that are associated with each file and each directory. Yeah, so when we go to greet simple, that's the file we're currently working with, we don't see an X. So we do not have the permission to execute this file. So we need to change this. And to do that, we use chmod, or change mode. And there's some different ways to use this, but we're gonna be turning the permission bit, or the execution permission bit, the X, we're gonna turn it on, which is the plus, for the user. That's us. So the user is, we are now gonna set the execution bit to 1, for greet simple. And if we're then gonna check again, you can see that the permission bit is now, or the execution bit is now set, because we do see an X here. And so if we try to run this, so previously we got permission denied, I'm gonna try again. It works, right? And we noticed that we didn't need to specify Python 3, right, because of the shebang line. We're almost there. I would say that in a lot of cases, this is sufficient. Yeah, but that dot slash, what's up with that? Yeah, that doesn't really feel like a real command line tool. We never have to use that. The reason is that this file is in a directory which is not on our search path. Yeah, the search path is an environment variable, which is that's a list of directories where the shell will look for your executable when you use its name. So this is my current list of directories, right? Let me see if I can make this a little bit. Can I do this? Right. Yeah, a long list of directories where it's going to look for, and it's in it will stop the moment it has found an executable with the name that you used. Yeah, so the order matters. Our current directory is not in here, so we can do two things to fix this. We can either move our script to a directory that is in our search path, yeah, or we can add the current directory to our path. Yeah, so both work. What I really like is to have a just one directory in somewhere in my home directory, maybe .bin or whatever. It doesn't matter what you call it. A place where you store all your own command line tools, and then just change your search path to add that one directory. Yeah, so that it's a one-time setup, and then you're done, and you just have all your tools in one place. For now, for this tutorial, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to add the current directory to the search path. Where are we? We're over here. Yeah, so that's this. So I'm actually updating the environment variable path to be a combination of the existing value of path and the current working directory. Yeah, so now hopefully, let's fingers crossed, I can say greet simple.py. Hi. Excellent. And I can even do this one directory up. Although I still need the directory in front of here for the names.txt file. Tutorial / and it still works. Excellent, it works. Let's go back. And you know what? there's actually one more step that I like to do. We don't really need that extension. .py, that's not needed in Unix or Linux. So we can just get rid of it. We can say greet simple. Oh, the other way around. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we can say greet simple, hi. Right? Oh, of course, because we're in that, please don't laugh. Makes me nervous. No. Yeah, because we're now back again in our repository. That's it. That's how you turn, even though it was just a simple script, how you can turn an existing Python script into a reusable command line tool with arguments, with streams, and whatnot. And it doesn't matter which approach you're going to use, whether that's the basic sys.argv, or, as we'll see in a moment, the argparse module or typer, or what have you. These steps are always there. Yeah? Are there any questions about these 6 or 7 steps that I just performed? In the back. Oh, you know what? That's a solution I never thought about. You can, of course, in your, so the question was, is there any advantage to adding the script to a directory and put it on your search path than to just using an alias? And I think that's a solution I have never thought of before, but that's something you could do, in your RC file, bash RC or C shell RC, create an alias, and then use the absolute path, the full path, the full location of that script. And is there a downside to that? I don't think so. Although, you know, if you plan to create a couple of tools, right, then you would need to create an alias for every single tool. And if you were to just have them in the same directory, then it's only one directory that you have to add to your search path. So that's perhaps the difference. Yeah.
You could also symlink from that directory to where the script resides, right?
You could also symlink, yeah. So it's kind of like creating something extra into a directory that's already on your search path. Yeah, yeah. But that's another solution. Oh man, I'm learning so much today. That's great. Any other questions?
This tool would work on Mac and Linux, but not on Windows, right?
That's right. Unless you're running this inside your Windows subsystem for Linux, or a Docker image, or Git Bash. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, Windows is a wonderful operating system for playing games. Moving on. And yes, yes, Linux is getting better and better. Yes, thank you, Steam, for that. Sorry, yes.
Instead of the script, can you use Jupyter notebooks and use the similar system?
Yeah, so the question was, I believe, instead of a script, can we also run Jupyter notebooks from the command line? I am not sure. So you would be invoking Jupyter something. There might be it might be some functionality that Jupyter then offers. So you would be, if I were to do that, I would probably wrap that into a short bash script, or an alias or a shell function. Yeah, that would then call Jupyter. I don't know if the actual invocation that you would need, but it might be possible. Now, when it comes to notebooks, this week I started playing with Marimo. totally new way of working with notebooks. And these notebooks, they are actual Python files. So if you are looking for such an approach, where there is a notebook that you can also run from the command line, then I can recommend Marimo. And I guess if you search on YouTube for Marimo and Typer, then you'll most likely come across a video created by Vincent Wamadan. He works at Marimo, and he actually explains how to do this. It's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Thank you. Oh yes, and then there was one.
As a name rather than a position, because I'm not saying your Python script. You were basically doing calling the second, I think the second string, right? Basically everything's positional. Whereas when you're calling a Python function, you could always say, this name equal this parameter name equal this value.
Yep.
Which is much more flexible, I think, because the way it's done implies that as a user, I need to know always, where the position of parameters.
Exactly. Okay. Good question. So in the tools that we just created, the tool, all the arguments are positional. Whereas before I've been talking about short options and long options. What's up with that? Yeah. So that is something that argv, because it's so basic, it does not provide this functionality. If you want that and you're still using argv, then you need to build this yourself. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I would use either the argparse module or the Typer package. So, and that's what I wanted to show next. So thank you very much for that question. I also see that we have about 10 minutes left. Let's see what we can do here to make it fit. Right, so far we've been using argv. Now, there is a built-in module, right? So it's part of the Python standard library called argparse. And this gives you a ton of flexibility when it comes to defining your command line arguments. Yeah, it can automatically generate help. You can denote whether your arguments should be optional or required. It can do some post-processing. If you indicate like, hey, this is a Boolean, you actually can use it as a Boolean instead of first parsing that string. Handles short and long options. Yeah, and it's, let's have a quick look at what that might look like. Again, this is our greeting script, but now there's a lot more code. See here, these first lines over here. That's me setting up argparse, right? Instructing argparse. Okay, what arguments does this script accept? Again, it uses argv under the hood, yeah, but it does a lot of work for you. So I recommend that you try this out. It's a lot more convenient, and if you have especially more than 2 arguments, I can definitely recommend moving on from argv and using argparse. Or use Typer, which is a relatively new Python package created by Sebastian Ramirez, the person behind Fast API. This is a very modern way of declaring your command line interface, so to speak, built on top of Click, which is, and Click, as we know, as I told you, it also uses argv under the hood. The main difference is that with Typer, you use type hints. And from that, it generates your interface and the help associated with it. And it is generally a lot less code than if you were to use argparse. Let's have a quick look at that. Again, it's our greeter application. you can see here, I have a function main with some arguments, like functions have, but now these are, right. Oh, right, so this one, I should update the repo. There's now a better way of doing this. Sorry, don't worry, but what I want you to focus on right now is, it's not so much the code itself, but just, the takeaway here is that typer uses type hints. Yeah? And this function is still usable as a regular Python function. And that is not the case when you use click. Click really changes the signature of the function. So that is one advantage of typer. See, so that's a lot less code than if you were to use argparse. Now, that's typer, but what is this here at the top? This is super awesome. This here is recently approved PEP 723, which allows you to specify dependencies inside the script itself, right? So the syntax, is perhaps a little bit weird. You have to start with 3 slashes script, and then it's something that looks like pipeproject.toml. You'll get used to it, and UV, this new tool to handle your packages, it can help with this. I have links in the presentation at the very end, but this allows you to make your tool stand alone, and this is definitely a good thing when you use external dependencies. Yeah? You can specify the Python version that your tool needs, and any other external dependencies go in here, in between these brackets. And there is at least one, which is typer itself. But also if your tool uses, say, the requests library or polars, it works. And if you then, because we now use a slightly different hashbang line, so it's no longer Python, which runs this code. No, it's UV run. It detects whether you have these packages, these dependencies already installed, and if not, it will do so. Making the ability to share this, this script with others all the more easy. Let me see if I can quickly demonstrate this. Greet typer. Oh yeah, let me first show that. Oh, it's not found. Oh, that's probably because my path in this particular session was not updated. Wow, look at this. It's beautiful. That's the help auto-generated by typer. And normally if you would run this script, this tool, for the very first time, you will see that it installs some packages. Now this was not shown here because I already had these packages installed because I already ran it. So it's being run in its own virtual environment. Yeah? These packages are not installed globally. This process gets its own virtual environment. Pretty cool. And I think in the repo, I've included 2 examples that are, a bit bigger, or 3 actually. There's the analyze tool, both the argparse version and the typer version. There's also sample.py, which is something that I created a long time ago that I actually needed. It's being used in the book Data Science at the command line, just to give you another example of how a more elaborate command line tool may look like. Yeah. So these 2 analyze scripts, they also use subcommands. 2 minutes to go? No. You can have a look at these scripts yourself, and right? Yeah, there's some best practices for you to review. I don't have time now to go over all of these, although some of them have been mentioned along the way. Some anti-patterns as well that you want to avoid. And this is your take-home exercise, right? Is to start building, and preferably as soon as possible, because otherwise, you will have forgotten all about this. And if you have built something, I would love to hear from you. If you have any other questions after this tutorial, I want to hear from you. So with that, I want to thank you very much for attending this tutorial. I think you've made the right choice, right? These 90 minutes, they're going to benefit you for the rest of your career. Yeah. So again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.